Good evening and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Wednesday, August 1st, 2012. I'm Tony Paniagua. So far this summer, we've had multiple monsoon rainstorms, but despite the welcome precipitation, Arizona's government requires a drought contingency plan from the state's water providers and other groups. Next, Mark McLemore talks with one of the scientists who helped to draft Arizona's statewide drought plan. He explains the program and the options.
And joining me now to talk about the drought conditions that are impacting the Southwest, including Arizona, I've got Greg Garfin. He's an assistant professor in the School of Natural Resources and the Environment here at the University of Arizona. Thanks for joining us, Greg.
It's a pleasure.
So tell us about the current drought and where it is estimated to have begun.
So the current drought began roughly in the summer, fall of 1998. It was after a big wet El Nino winter, and then the faucet began to shut off for the Southwest. We've had a lot of variability over the last 14 years, but by and large, it's been a dry period for the Southwest.
And how has this impacted our overall water supply? And first of all, define for us how that water supply is measured. We're talking about the Colorado River and its suppliers.
Yeah, sure. Well, we have many water supplies in Arizona. We've got the surface water, what we call in Arizona the renewable water supply, and that's primarily from the Colorado River. It feeds a lot of irrigated agriculture in central Arizona, as well as the Phoenix metro area and the Tucson metro area. Phoenix is very fortunate to also have a surface water supply from the Salt and Verde River watersheds, and both Tucson and Phoenix and just about everywhere else in the state also gets groundwater.
And these water supplies, though, in terms of the Colorado River, what percentage are we looking at right now in capacity?
Yeah, so the Colorado River water storage is about 60% of capacity, and the biggest reservoirs on the Colorado River, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, are at 56% of capacity. They got down into the mid to high 40% in 2003, 2004. So things are a little better than they were at the start of the 2000s.
Well, I understand in about 2004, you were part of a group that helped to draft a drought contingency or preparedness plan for the state of Arizona. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so we had experienced some very severe drought impacts in 2002 and early 2003. We probably all remember the Rodeo Chetasky fire. Here we had the Aspen fire on the north side of the Catalinas. Those big reservoirs had their second lowest inflow in the historic record, and the levels dropped pretty precipitously. And when Governor Napolitano took office in 2002, she declared an executive order basically asking the Arizona Department of Water Resources to lead an effort to craft Arizona's first drought preparedness plan.
And under what conditions does that plan go into effect?
Yeah, so the plan is tightly tied to drought status monitoring that's done by a state drought monitoring committee that was again initiated with the start of that drought planning effort. Most of the measures are voluntary actions that can be taken around the state. The only entity that has a mandate to do any kind of drought actions or cutbacks of water use are state-run entities like state parks and other state facilities.
Well, what can you tell us about Tucson Water and a drought preparedness plan that they may have?
Yeah, so all state water providers were mandated, I believe it was in 2005 by some state legislation, to have drought contingency plans. Tucson Water developed a drought contingency plan. I believe we're in stage 1 drought, which again is voluntary measures. Tucson Water, of course, has its Beat the Peak program. They also have a very forward-looking, long-term water supply planning. And that includes looking at long-term drought. They've begun some efforts to look at drought and climate change. And a lot of Tucson Water's long-term planning has to do with infrastructure, with local water conservation, and with things that are tied to the Central Arizona Project, and being prepared for what they're calling an inevitable cutback in CAP deliveries.
Well, tell me, one of your specialties is bridging the science and social interface. And are you seeing a culture of water conservancy in Arizona?
Yeah, well, more or less. In our large cities, demand for water has, or water use, I should say, has actually declined. And that has allowed large cities like Tucson and Phoenix to continue to grow without having a major impact on water needs.
So we're able to hold steady, but an increase in growth could outpace that advantage.
Yeah, and the major water providers in our metro areas are planning for that kind of growth. They had been planning for it. They've actually taken on some additional preparations for drought in order to keep up with things. Now, having said that, if we look back into the paleoclimate record, we see 60-year-long droughts that no water provider in the Southwest is currently prepared to take on. Yes. So there's still some challenges ahead.
Yeah, as we stand here at the 14-year mark looking ahead. So, well, thank you so much for your time, Greg. Thanks for coming by for the interview.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Late July and early August are said to be the best times to explore your surroundings in the desert if you'd like to find nutritious food that is native, abundant, and free. Tonight, we introduce you to a couple of members from Desert Harvesters, a local nonprofit organization. They share their knowledge and passion about some of the culinary options from Mother Nature. We spoke to them earlier this week. Lori Melrud and Amy Valdez-Schwen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So let's begin with you, Amy. What is the Desert Harvesters organization all about?
Yes, Desert Harvesters is a community organization that really is in existence because of mesquite. Mesquite trees are one of the most abundant trees in our desert. The pods are sweet and delicious and very nutritious, especially for people watching their blood sugar. And also an extremely small footprint food if you consider you might be harvesting them from your own yard that you've planted the trees with water harvesting earthworks. They can be a great food source with no supplemental water. Desert Harvesters really came into being in order to make a more modern and quicker way to process that mesquite. And so we have our community hammer mill events.
Okay, and Lori, so there are different types of food available in the desert. You want to address prickly pear. What do you want to say about these plants?
Well, this is a rich harvesting time right now, July and August. And because of the rains, it looks like we're going to have a rich harvesting time all the way through mid-fall. But prickly pear is kind of the queen at this time of year. So we brought one actually to show you how easy it is. And if you want to go out harvesting yourself, all you need is a pair of tongs, a little bit of grit. You don't need any gloves, and it's quite easy to harvest and then prepare. There's a method for that. Desert Harvesters also provides materials on preparing prickly pear and many other desert foods.
And what do you do with the thorns on that fruit?
Well, with the fruits, we put them in water. I just let them sit in water for 12 hours. Then I either throw it in the freezer and they've all fallen off by the time I use them, or I cook it up right away and just use cheesecloth and get out the thorns. But either way, we don't cook with thorns.
All right, Amy, and you wanted to talk about the pods and how good they are and what they can lead to insofar as the flower. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. When the pods are really brittle and dry, what you'll do is you'll go up to a tree, and there's the long harvesting window depending on the elevation and the weather any particular year. And what you'll do is you'll go up to a tree sometime between late June and even into October, and just tug on a pod. These are green, and so you can see they're not coming off easily. But if you were to tug on another pod and it was dry, and it would come off really easily when they're really dry. And you can go to desertharvesters.org to find out information about storage and processing and safety. We always pick pods off the tree, and then you've dried them and stored them until the community milling event in the fall. When the humidity is low, then it's a good time to grind things into flour. What you get was you're basically grinding the whole pod, that fleshy mesocarp. It's not just the seed. That's what a lot of people wonder. They think it's just the seed. And you grind the whole pod either in a hammer mill or in a molcajete, basically with stone tools, and you'll end up with this beautiful gluten-free flour or meal. And it's just so spectacular. Lori's made these beautiful banana bread, but it's so wonderful in savory things like mole or crackers. It's wonderful in cakes and cookies and things like that.
Pancakes.
Pancakes with prickly pear syrup. And also, it's there are a lot of things you can do with it without waiting for the community milling event, too. In the fall, if you wanted to just go ahead and boil up your pods into a more traditional pudding or more modern things like ice cream or beer, there are a lot of options.
And Lori, how did you find out about this organization, and why did you decide to get involved?
You know, our community is getting more and more interested in desert foods. And so Desert Harvesters was, for me, an address to go to let people know about some of the classes I teach. Desert Harvesters typically teaches, as well as enthusiasts about harvesting. And my interest actually started through mesquite, but also through nopal. And nopal is not quite the same as prickly pear. If you can see the difference between the two leaves or stems, they're really called stems. The nopal is the go-to food for people trying to guard against high blood sugar, bad cholesterol. It's been shown to have considerable impact on that. And so we do a lot of harvesting of nopal in spring, and then it's time for mesquite, prickly pear. We also do cholla buds. These are the cholla buds that we harvested in May. And Desert Harvesters is a place where all of us can kind of gather our information, our knowledge, get it out to the community.
Amy, it seems like you have a lot of passion about this topic. Why so?
Well, I love desert foods. I love eating closer to what I've been harvesting, closer to what I've been growing in my own yard. And I grew up in this desert, and it's just such a magical thing when you can finally come to the realization, oh, I can feed myself from this desert. I think it's very empowering. It also teaches you about food, things like food safety and food processing that you might not otherwise have the opportunity to even think about or have a discussion about. So I think it's just so important for all of us, even if you just have a wild salad, even if it's just one leaf. I just feel it's a really important connection to our environment.
And then finally, Lori, if somebody doesn't know how to get started, where to begin, what would you recommend to him or her?
I would have them look at www.desertharvesters.org. That's the website, or meet one of us at one of the milling events. We're out in the community. Right now, there are many classes being held, so that's another source, is going to one of these classes that Amy and I and others are teaching.
Well, great. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with the harvest.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Lona Drusher Nielsen runs the biggest ape rescue operation in the world. The Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation cares for more than 600 rescued and confiscated orangutans. They face extinction, but the team here do everything they can to rescue, care for, and return orangutans to the few safe places left in the wild.
Tonight at 8 on PBS 6.
The Tucson-based Muscular Dystrophy Association is joining forces with the University of Arizona and other groups to establish a first-of-its-kind training and research program. The goal is to assist postdoctoral fellows in trying to develop drugs for neuromuscular diseases. Joining us to talk about this are Dr. Sanjay Bidichandani from the Muscular Dystrophy Association and Dr. Joaquin Reese, the Dean of the U of A's College of Science. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So let's begin with this, Dr. Abidi Chandani. This is called Bridge to Industry. What is that all about?
So the goal of the Muscular Dystrophy Association is to identify effective therapies for over 40 different neuromuscular diseases, including muscular dystrophy and Lou Gehrig's disease. And we do this by funding basic research, translational research, and clinical research. Now, the simple way to understand this is in basic research, we try to figure out what is wrong in people who have any of these diseases. And in clinical research, we try to fix it by giving drugs to individuals who have these conditions. But translational research refers to the part where we take the information from the lab and translate into something that is a drug that is meaningful to individuals who have these conditions. Now, we've been training a lot of people in basic research and clinical research, and we came up with this new program to train people in translational research, so individuals who will be experts at drug development.
And Dr. Joaquin Reese, what did you think about the University of Arizona getting involved, and what does it mean for the students?
Well, it's extraordinary. I like to say that the difference between basic research and translational research these days is about a week. There's an enormous amount of research that is now bottled up, waiting to find a way to help people right away. So having partnerships with companies or with foundations or any kind of organization that's willing to do that is a dream come true, not only for me, but for all the scientists that are working in what we call basic research.
Okay, and in this case, Doctor, you have one student who's going to get approximately $180,000 for the course of 3 years. Right. We're talking about a significant amount of change there.
Significant amount of money there. I just want to say that this program is unique. We don't have many programs like this, actually, in the whole world. And our goal was to set something up locally here. Of course, working with Dean Ruiz, we were lucky to have his business team work with us, his faculty work with us, and the people at Bio5 who are experts in medicinal chemistry, they worked with us to be able to set this up locally so that we can observe the whole process and then eventually launch this at the national level.
And Dr. Reese, I would imagine that money is always an obstacle for researchers, the lack of money. So this obviously opens up a lot of doors.
Well, these kinds of partnerships are really important for two reasons. In an absolute sense, our federal government is decreasing the amount of money for research. So if we want to continue doing research of any sort, basic or not, we need to have partnerships with places like the MDA or whatever. Secondly, it's critically important to us as well because it's local. I mean, even though the MDA is a national organization, it is in Tucson. And I think it is fundamental for the University of Arizona and all of our researchers and our students to get engaged in our community. So it works beautifully for all kinds of reasons. And the money for sure is really important.
And the good thing is that you have these students that are learning something in the classroom and now they're putting it into effect in the laboratory.
That's right. Many of these students are indeed going to end up working for pharmaceutical companies, big or small ones. And having an idea of how it works, how you actually go from the bench to anything that will end up in the pharmacy is absolutely critical.
And what do you want to tell us about this first research program, if you will, with the student involved at the moment?
So you mentioned earlier that this is called a bridge to industry. So we want individuals who train in both the academic setting, so in a university, but also learn from individuals who have drug development expertise. And these people will become the experts who will actually take molecules and drugs that are stuck in the lab and take them into the clinic. And in this case, this is a drug that's being developed for Lou Gehrig's disease. And actually, Daniela Zanescu, who's the faculty member here in the College of Sciences, is the one who discovered these drugs. These drugs are not ready to go into humans yet. Hopefully, this postdoctoral fellow working with the Bio5 in Oro Valley will make some molecules that will then be ready to take into the human clinical research.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have. I wish we could continue the conversation, but we'll have you here at another time. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Libraries contain a wealth of information about countless topics, and much of it is now available at the touch of a fingertip. Tonight, we'll tell you about a famous local photographer and a digital collection with over 10,000 images that record some of Tucson's history. Luis Carrion has that story.
A lot of people can't believe it. When I mention a figure, they say he's crazy. There's not enough time in the day.
It's been said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. If that's the case, then the late Jack Schaefer's photographic archive collection says quite a bit about Tucson and the people that lived here from the 50s through the 70s.
I've got 40-some thousand different assignments that I shot to the star, 40-some thousand. I enjoyed Tucson. I've always enjoyed people, even from the wino in the gutter to the president that would come to visit Tucson. I enjoyed all people.
Schaefer had an intimate connection with Tucson, and he was able to capture through his lens a thorough documentation of life in an era of rapid growth.
Jack Schaefer is one of those indelible characters from Tucson, and he had a persona that was larger in life.
Erica Castaño is the digital archivist at the Special Collections Division of the U of A Libraries. She says this collection of more than 10,000 images, now available online, is an important addition to the university's digital archive.
Jack Schaefer was the chief photographer for the Arizona Daily Star from the 1950s through the early 1980s. His career ended when he was involved in an electrical explosion at the Tucson newspaper plant.
It had a 65-foot fireball about 8 feet wide, and I was in the center of it as it blew, and it just went right through me. But I'm 55% skin grafted, and I didn't have enough skin to finish my grafting. I made sure they took care of my ears and my face.
The accident ended Schaefer's career, but not before he had amassed a comprehensive photographic documentation of life in Tucson.
I think his beat was everything at that point in time. Tucson was, after post-World War II, it's when it began to boom. And so we went from a small town to the large city, and so you see that transformation.
Castaño says the Schaefer family granted the U of A Special Collections his negatives as well as some prints upon Jack Schaefer's death. And the newly digitized collection is culled from those materials that are housed here.
Right now we're actually below the reading room of Special Collections, and this is where we house all of the materials or collections that Special Collections has. And so right now we're in what we call a processing area, where we physically process a collection, so we arrange it in some order so for people to use out in the reading room. And this right here is actually the Jack Schaefer collection. And Jack Schaefer left us with 55,000 packets of negatives. And so we think the collection is over 300,000 individual negatives. We've gone through just over 100,000 of those negatives right now. And of those 100,000, we've digitized about over 10,000.
Schaefer covered a lot of ground during his years as a photographer.
If you talk to longtime residents of Tucson, most of them remember the Pioneer Hotel fire. That was a massive hotel fire. A number of people lost their lives. And he was out on the scene documenting the fire itself, the emergency workers, the expressions from the crowd, and seeing what kind of impact that event had.
Castaño says the Schaefer collection is an invaluable document of the history of Tucson, and it fits well within the overall mission of Special Collections.
Special Collections' mission really is to document the area of Arizona, the Southwest, and then various particular areas of strength for the University of Arizona. And so our primary users are undergraduates and faculty, and what we do here is collect materials that help facilitate and support their research. But on a grander sense, we also support the community of Tucson as well, too, in that we preserve the historical record as it pertains to Tucson and the Southwest and Borderlands area.
Castaño says the digital collection of Schaefer photographs is a small fraction of what is housed here as part of the physical collection, but she expects it to grow over time as the community submits requests for these iconic images.
Right now, the collection is really customer or community driven, so as people hear about the Schaefer collection or find out that we may have pictures pertaining to subjects or topics, or even pictures of themselves. They come in and we find them and we put them up online.
The Jack Schaefer digital collection continues to grow, and it allows viewers a window into a bygone era, brought into focus by the lens of one of Tucson's most memorable photographers.
I got to the right place at the right time. A lot of things are hunches, but you got to, like in sports, it's got to be timing. You got to have when you push the button on the shutter. Anybody can set up a picture, but to catch action or even tragedy when it happens, the only way you get it is you're lucky, either in the right place at the right time.
In tonight's video postcard from photographer and editor John Dinayasi, we see the results of the monsoon rainfalls at a higher elevation. John takes us up to Mount Lemmon, where the increased precipitation is appreciated by people and Mother Nature. You can get more news and information on our website, azpm.org. To comment on any story you saw tonight, click on it online and go to the bottom. We can also be reached via Facebook and Twitter. Coming up tomorrow night, we'll speak to Governor Jan Brewer about some good economic news for the state. The fiscal year ended with a bigger than expected surplus. A local documentary deals with some of the dangerous issues faced by migrants in our deserts. And the music conductor and director of the Tucson Symphony Orchestra is being honored in our community. I'm Tony Paniagua. From all of us at Arizona Public Media, have a great night.